Auspicious greetings to all Dharma friends. This is You Deng from Dongzhen Buddhist College in Malaysia. Nice to meet you all again. This time, I would like to share the story of the 10 great disciples of Buddha. Each of them has own expertise and achievements. They have an indelible credit for propagating the Buddha's teachings. To this day, they are the same as the Buddha that will be admired by future generations. Among the disciples whom the Buddha declared preeminent, Ananda, who was foremost in 5 qualities. They are the quality of those who had heard much, it is, who had learned much of the Buddha's discourses. The quality of those who had a good memory, the quality of those who had mastery over the sequential structure of the teachings, the quality of those who were steadfast in study, and the quality of the Buddha's attendants. In general, people always regard Ananda was foremost in heard much of the Buddha's teaching. Ananda was born in Kapilavastu and was the Buddha's cousin. Ananda's father was King Sullodana and his elder brother was Devadatta. Buddha's greatest hope was Ananda would leave home with him. The Buddha could foresee the future, and he thought, if Ananda leaves home, he shall spread Dharma to the future generations. King Sullodana afraid Buddha would influence Ananda. So, when Buddha visited the hometown, he brought Ananda to Vaisali, so that there would be less opportunity of Ananda meeting Buddha. When Buddha went to Vaisali, King Sullodana again brought Ananda back to Kapilavastu. Knowing Ananda had returned to Kapilavastu, Buddha immediately went to the palace of King Sullodana. When Ananda saw the Buddha, he paid his respects to the Buddha and used a fan to fan him. From here, we can see that little Ananda had respected Buddha even at a young age. When the time was ripe, Ananda, Prince Aniruddha, and Bhaddiya joined the monks' community. Ananda joined the Sangha when he was a child. Growing up in the Sangha, Ananda had a gentle and compassionate disposition. He was most respected by women because he was caring towards the bhikkhunis and women followers of the Buddha. Ananda was young and handsome, and this caused him some troubles. When Buddha allowed his foster mother Mahaprajapati and 500 women of the Shakan clan stay in Sangha community, Ananda helped them persuade Buddha allowed female to become bhikkhunis. The Buddha refused. Ananda, I sympathize with them, but it is not appropriate to let women enter our community. Lord Buddha, are men and women different in the Dharma? Ananda asked. Ananda, the Dharma is the same in heaven or in the world. I do not discriminate against women. I treat all sentient beings as equal. Women can do as the men did, follow my Dharma and practice, but they need not become bhikkhunis. This is the question of our system. Women leaving home are like wild grass in the field, which will affect the harvest. This speech of Buddha had profound meaning. On the aspect of humanity, women should be allowed to leave home. However, on the aspect of Dharma logic, it's not good to allow the two genders to practice together. Ananda said in tears, Lord Buddha, can you bear to see them die? Shouldn't you show them compassion and give them a helping hand? The Buddha felt it was impossible to care for both Dharma and feeling at the same time. He also understood that there was no pure and unchanging Dharma. Buddha finally agreed to Ananda's request to allow women to join Sangha community. The Buddha met the 500 women and wanted them to obey 8 extra rules towards the monks. Once, Ananda back in Sravasti, he saw a peasant girl named Matanga getting water from the well. Ananda was thirsty, so he asked the girl to give him some water. The girl was deeply attracted by Ananda's look and his gentle speech. She even dreamed of marrying him. In actual fact, young Ananda could not forget the young lady too. Ananda began to feel confused when he met her again. Ananda told the Buddha his encounter with Matanga. The Buddha then told him to bring the girl to him. When Buddha met Matanga, he said, Ananda is a practicing monk. To be his wife, you need to leave home and be a bhikkhuni for a year. Are you willing? I'm willing, Lord Buddha, said Matanga. According to my system, leaving home needs approval from parents. Can you get your parents to approve of it? Matanga's mother was happy and agreed to let her daughter become a bhikkhuni. In order to be Ananda's wife, Matanga became a bhikkhuni. She listened to Buddha's preachings and practiced according to Buddha's guidance. Her desires and emotions eventually calmed down, and she realized that in the past, her pursuit of love was a shameful behavior. Buddha always preached that the 5 forms of desires were unclean Dharma and the source of sufferings. Only when the 5 desires were cleared could the mind become pure and the life peaceful. The girl realized her obsession with Ananda was unclean and bad. She regretted, and one day he knelt in front of Buddha and tearfully repented. Buddha, I am awake now. I will not be ignorant like I used to be. I am very grateful to you. In order to convert ignorant sentient beings like us, you have put in so much effort to think of various ways. From now on, I am going to be a bhikkhuni forever. Follow Buddha's footsteps to be a messenger of truth. Buddha's earnest teachings had finally awakened her to become a model bhikkhuni. The incidents of Matanga's attraction to Ananda's appearance and the turning of misfortune into happiness had become a matter of great interest in the Buddhist community, and a charming story through the ages. In Buddha's heart, Ananda was the person to spread Buddha's seed. However, his problems with women were especially much. In order to let Ananda control himself and practice with concentration, Buddha intended to make Ananda his attendant. After much persuasion from Sariputra and Moggallana, Ananda agreed to become Buddha's attendant but listed 3 conditions. They are: Buddha's clothing, whether new or old, he refused to wear. When devotees invite the Buddha to receive offerings, he will not go along. When it is not the time to see the Buddha, he will not see him. Other than this, he is willing to serve Lord Buddha. Buddha praised Ananda after hearing the three conditions. Ananda is really a bhikkhu with character. He listed three conditions to avoid criticisms. He does not want others to criticize that he served Buddhas because of good clothes and food. He knows how to prevent these conditions. From then on, Ananda became Buddha's attendant. He was only 20 over years old. During his 27 years with Buddha, he acted according to Buddha's instructions and accompanied Buddha to preach at various places. He was also the mediator between Buddha and bhikkhus. In the Sangha, Ananda maintained a modest and respectful attitude. Many devotees took refuge in Buddha because of him. Lay Buddhists liked to listen to Ananda's preachings, and Ananda always taught them to respect the Tribhajan, observe 5 precepts, be filial towards parents, make offerings to the Sangha. Even though Ananda had not attained enlightenment, he already possessed such virtues. Ananda and his elder brother Devadatta had very different characters. Devadatta was ambitious and discontented. Devadatta wanted the Buddha to teach him the ways to acquire supernatural powers, but the Buddha rejected. Devadatta's rebellious behavior gradually expanded. He even intended to kill Buddha to ease his anger and make himself the leader. One day, Ananda and the Buddha were walking at the foot of a mountain cliff and were seen by Devadatta, who was at the mountain top. He felt that it was an opportunity not to be missed. Disregarding the fact that his brother Ananda was there too. Devadatta rolled huge rocks down the cliff. The Buddha did not attempt to avoid them, but Ananda ran off. The rocks fell beside the Buddha. Ananda felt ashamed of Devadatta's wrongdoing. Before Buddha entered parinirvana, Ananda knelt beside the Buddha's bed and gently asked, "Lord Buddha, what should be our attitude towards women in the future? Please give me guidance again." Buddha answered, "Ananda, to attain enlightenment, one should not think of women, especially you. Although you are growing old, nevertheless, it is better for you not to look at women. If it is unavoidance, then treat old women as your mother, elder women as your elder sister, and young women as your young sister. Ananda, you must bear in mind my words." Ananda also represented fellow bhikkhus as Buddha how to keep the Dharma forever. He asked, "First, when Lord Buddha entered parinirvana, who shall be the master? Second, when Lord Buddha entered parinirvana, how shall we live? Third, when Lord Buddha entered parinirvana, how to treat evil people? Fourth, when Lord Buddha entered parinirvana, how do we propagate Buddha's teaching?" In his usual compassionate tone, Buddha replied, "Fellow bhikkhus, all of you must remember to take precepts as your master, and take the Dharma as your refuge. In this way, you will ensure the continuance of the Dharma." Eventually, Buddha entered parinirvana quietly. 3 days after Buddha entered parinirvana, Ananda hurried to Raja because of the first council where disciples of Buddha would compile the sutras containing Buddha's sermons and the precepts for believers. On the eve of the council, Mahakasyapa had chosen 500 bhikkhus to take part in the first council. All of them were arahats. Ananda was not selected because he had not attained enlightenment. Ananda was upset, but was not deterred. At night, he practiced hard, pondered deeply, let down everything, and at midnight, he eventually attained enlightenment. The next day, before the door was opened, he was already inside the hall. Under the leadership of Mahakasyapa, Ananda was carried by the bhikkhus onto the lion's seat and started to recite from his memory. The bhikkhus once again received Buddha's guidance, which they were very grateful. The initial scriptures, such as the 4 agamas and the Dhammapada, etc., were recited by Ananda in the first council. After Buddha entered parinirvana, Mahakasyapa became his successor. 20 years later, Mahakasyapa was over 100 years old. He went to Kukutapada mountain to enter nirvana. Before he left, he handed everything over to Ananda. At that time, Ananda was already 80 years old. Next, Rahula, who foremost in esoteric practices. Rahula was the son of Prince Siddhartha and Yasodhara, and the grandson of King Suddhodana, second king of Kapilavastu Lumbini. Just before Prince Siddhartha renounced the world, his wife Yasodhara gave birth to a son. The birth of this child made Prince Siddhartha's desire to escape from the palace even more difficult. On the evening he had finally decided to leave, the Buddha peered into the royal bedchamber to take one last look at his sleeping wife and child. The Buddha returned to Kapilavastu after attained enlightenment. Yasodhara took the little Rahula to listen to the Buddha's preaching. She told Rahula to ask his father for his inheritance of crown and treasure. But the Buddha, an advocate for the good of all humanity, felt that the young Rahula was unsuited for kingship. Therefore, Buddha used skillful means to bring Rahula into the monastic life. Buddha's father, Suddhodana, and Yasodhara complained that the boy had been taken away without their permission, as a result of which the Buddha made it a rule that parental consent was necessary before someone could be ordained. The Buddha asked Sariputra to ordain little Rahula, who became the first Samarena. The Buddha appointed Sariputra as Rahula's teacher. As if to make up for the 7 years Rahula was without a father, the Buddha took great interest in Rahula's moral and spiritual education, teaching him many times himself. Rahula was young. When the Buddha delivered his teachings, Rahula did not completely understand. Unable to achieve the state of realization, Rahula was not happy with his life in the monastic community. But he did not complain. In his innocent heart, he held nothing but reverence and admiration for his father's teaching. As a teenager, Rahula had telling lies habits. Whenever people asked Rahula where the Buddha was, he would always take the chance to make fun of them by lying to them. For example, if the Buddha was in Venuvana, he would always say the Buddha at Gajiguda. If the Buddha was at a monastery instructing disciples, Rahula would point in the opposite direction, usually somewhere far away. He took joy in seeing people going everywhere looking for the Buddha. Of course, looking in all the wrong places. They would never find the Buddha. Rahula would then laugh at them, thinking they were so silly. This was how he kept himself entertained. Once, when the Buddha was absent, the king and his ministers came to see the Buddha. Rahula told them that the Buddha was present. At the sight of the king's party entering the monastery and searching in vain for the Buddha, Rahula gleefully laughed. After Buddha found out this, he asked Rahula to fetch some water to wash the Buddha's feet. After the Buddha's finished washing, he pointed to the water and said, "Rahula, is the water in this basin suitable for drinking?" Rahula replied, "This water is dirty now. After it was used to wash your feet, it is undrinkable." Buddha said, "You and the water are alike. The water was originally pure, just as you were a novice, freed from the vain glories of your life as the royal heir. But after you become a novice, you failed to diligently practice, did not purify body and mind, and did not guard your mouth against frivolous speech. The defilements of the three poisons have gathered in your heart, just as the pure water is now filled with grime." Rahula lowered his head and did not dare to meet the Buddha's gaze. He quickly took the basin outside and poured out the dirty water. When he returned, the Buddha said to him, "Now, take this basin and put food in it." Rahula frowned and replied, "This basin was just used to wash feet. It's dirty. We cannot put food in it." The Buddha said, "Rahula, you are like this basin. For even though you have become a pure novice, you do not cultivate morality, meditative concentration, and wisdom. You do not purify body, speech, and mind. How can a nourishment of the great path be held in you?" Rahula began to feel ashamed. The Buddha looked at the basin and suddenly kicked it. The basin struck the wall and broke into pieces. The Buddha then asked, "Rahula, would you treasure a broken basin?" Rahula said, "Buddha, a basin used to wash feet is worthless and is of little value. Even if it's broken, it doesn't really matter." The Buddha replied, "Your attitude is just like this basin. Your words and lies are not valued and appreciated by people. No one will respect you, and no one will care for you." Rahula, upon hearing the Buddha's teaching, a look of fear spread across his face and said, "From now on, I will focus on my practice." The Buddha used the analogy of the basin to teach Rahula. He did not scold or chastise him. Instead, the Buddha was patient in explaining why lying is not acceptable. Though the Buddha wished to teach Rahula a lesson, he was very much aware of Rahula's dignity and self-esteem. He was able to skillfully let Rahula to recognize his bad habits and inspire him to change himself and realize his true nature. From then on, Rahula reformed his mischievous habits. He strictly adhered to the precepts, diligently upheld the Dharma, and performed esoteric practices every day to purify his heart and mind. When Rahula reached the age of 20, he became fully ordained bhikkhu. One day, as he was on an alms round with the Buddha said, "All worldly phenomena, the human body, thoughts, gain and loss, happiness and sorrow, fame and shame, praise and blame, one should contemplate the emptiness of all these things and avoid being attached to any of them." When Rahula heard the Buddha's words, he attained a great realization. It was as if his mind had suddenly been opened. He parted from the Buddha and returned to the monastery to meditate and reflect. Following his father's advice and guidance on meditation, Rahula finally attained enlightenment. He was 18 at that time. After that, his friends always referred to him as Rahula the Lucky. Rahula obtained the name Rahula the Lucky, which himself explained was because of being the son of the Buddha and because he had seen the truth. Ananda was so much taken up by subordinating his entire life to the Dharma that fame could not touch him and make him proud. He knew that all that was good in him was due to the influence of the Buddha's teaching. We know very little about Rahula. He does not seem to have been prominent at being either a Dharma teacher or a trainer of other monks. It is likely that Rahula kept himself in the background so that he could not be accused of taking advantage of being the son of the enlightened one. Ananda and Rahula's humble attitudes are the good qualities that we shall learn from them. The life of Lord Buddha has always been for the purpose of helping all sentient beings to make them free from suffering and pain of the life. The Lord Buddha, like the boundless sea, he accommodates the flows of peoples. Like the light of the sun and the moon shines on the earth equally. Buddha's nobleness and greatness could not be described in words. We can only be grateful, follow the footsteps of the great disciples, carry on Buddha's teachings, and spread Buddhism far wider for the benefits of all sentient beings. Thank you for joining this online English Dharma service. Let us join our palms and dedicate the joy and merits from this session to all sentient beings. May all free from the suffering. Once again, thank you for joining us. If you find this Dharma service is helpful to you, please subscribe to the Guang English Dharma Service YouTube channel and share it to your friends. Last but not least, I wish you all stay safe, stay healthy, and stay awesome. See you next week. Amitofo.